Okay, so welcome to everyone who's joined. My name's John Slow. I'm Director here at Delta Energy and Environment.
And my name is Arthur Joannick. I'm Senior Analyst at Deltaee and managing the Connectome service.
On the line as well, we've got Susan Fennell of Delta, who will be contributing to the webinar as well. Welcome, Susan.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I think we'll get started. So you should all be able to see the title slide, the Connected Home Service webinar. And if we move on to the next slide. There we are. Then you can see what we look like as well as hear what we sound like. So my name is John Slow, as I've mentioned.
And my name is Arthur Joannick. On the Connectome service team, we have Ali Datka, analyst at Delta, and two associates with a huge background in connected homes and IoT. Sue Fennell, who is here on the call, and Mark Roger, who should be on the call as well. So the agenda for today, first of all, to introduce the report, the key questions in the infrastructure report were what really are the electronics and internet giants doing in this space? So we hear a lot about Google, about Apple, Samsung, but what are they actually doing? What are the strategy and how they are trying to become the center of the house to be platform providers? We looked at the different ways to make devices interact with each other in the connected home. So obviously today interoperability doesn't really exist. So we analyzed how can devices talk to each other through the cloud, through gateways and other possibilities. And finally, the main question was the key criteria to selecting a platform. So obviously your businesses are all looking at this space and how to be involved in this. And you can't probably compete with the giant ones. So how to select your platform to be successful was one of the key questions we looked at.
And we can share a number of our insights from this research with you. Obviously, we can't share the full report. That's for subscribers to our Connected Home service. But we hope you get value out of the time you spend with us today as we share some of our highlights and key findings with you. Okay, so we'll say a few words about Delta Energy and Environment for those of you that don't know us, just so you know where we're coming from. So we're a research and consulting company focusing on the demand side of the energy industry. And in recent years, done more and more work on connectivity and home energy management and smart homes. We do a number of different types of work, and our main client base, for those of you that don't know, are energy companies and product manufacturers across Europe and in Asia and occasionally North America. And we run 7 different subscription services on different topics, one of which is a connected home, produce multi-client studies, and about half of our work is bespoke consultancy. This diagram here just shows you how our different services link together. So you can see at the bottom in the middle of the pyramid is our connected home service, which sits alongside our other in-depth services. And then higher up the triangle, you can see how these knit together to look across markets and look at business model innovation. So a brief background to Delta. You can contact us to find out more or look at our website if you want to learn more. But let's move on to the topic of today, the connected home infrastructure.
So yeah, we'll share with you some of the highlights coming from the reports of the connected home infrastructure. The main thing we thought was it was really difficult to structure this space, and our clients really found this difficult. So what we did, we looked at it in a different angles. The first one being the battle between the radio providers, or what you can call the protocols, or the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, Thread, etc. How this links together and who is most likely to be successful. Also, the number of ways to make devices interact with each other in the connected home. So today, mostly we have single point solutions, but in the future, it's likely that customers will have several devices and customers will want them to interact with each other. The third point really is the battle for becoming the in-home device provider that will do everything in the connected home, from downloading apps and running the devices together, what we call the aggregator. And the last point is really looking at the platform providers and the different combination of the three first points to see which one is most suitable for your business and what kind of strategy they are doing and how you can benefit from them. So the content of the report is shown here. So when we will share the slides with you, you can have a look at it. We won't talk about it right now, but it just shows how we structured this. Feel free to have a look at it at the end. The first point we looked at is, as I say, the battle between the radio providers. So on the left-hand side, you can see the big names of the connected home LED radios, mostly for devices that are battery powered. And on the right-hand side, the rather mobile industry LED radios, which have been in the market for several years now. So the key question, the battle between both of them, the key questions are: where is the market power? So as we said, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, for example, have been around for almost a decade, where the mobile phone industry sells about 1 billion, 2 billion of each per year, while the Zigbee Z-Waves are only sold in the millions today. So obviously there is some kind of trend in the market power towards Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
And we see companies like Nest pushing the Thread protocol very hard. But they have a challenge, I think, to get widespread acceptance of the Thread protocol. And maybe they'll achieve it, maybe they won't, but they'll certainly try very hard to push that particular protocol.
Exactly. And the fact that getting to scale will allow chips to become cheaper or not. So today, a Wi-Fi or Bluetooth chip is much cheaper than Zigbee or Z-Wave. So obviously, for connected home providers, this will reduce costs. And also the fact that for example, Zigbee or Z-Wave, providers will need a gateway to convert the radio signal into the internet. And therefore, this adds an unnecessary white box in the ears of customers, and that also costs money. So there is a trend towards Wi-Fi today because this is obviously cheaper because you need a gateway and the chips are cheaper.
One of the limitations of Wi-Fi is battery, obviously, and some of the protocols on the left have got maybe a longer battery life. Mark, if you can, would you like to make a comment or two on the issue of battery life?
Sure. Battery life in a lot of these devices has been one of the sort of major battlegrounds in the last sort of 5 years or so. It's becoming less and less of a battle as the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth group has basically tried to reduce their power consumption, mainly to benefit phones and smartphones in particular. So we're seeing power consumption coming down generally, but of course there's always a sort of law of physics problem at the background of this, and that's the range and power that the radio actually transmits at, and its speed of operation, which in the case of the left-hand and the right-hand side of the slide is very different. So, you know, an order of magnitude or so difference in speed and in fact in range as well. So power is always an issue, but it's suffice to say that if your application is very well designed, you can get very long battery lives on a Wi-Fi system, but you do have to do quite a lot of work in software to make sure that that's the case. And we see battery lives on a single cell getting up towards 3 years in some applications, but they have to be very well designed to do that. So devices like thermostats are one of the ones that can benefit from that technique. But if you have devices that are always on, of course, the power consumption for Wi-Fi is considerable. But even if you turn a Zigbee device on all the time, you have the same or similar problem with battery life. So there's a lot of misreporting of the subject, and you really have to study the spec sheets very carefully and build models to find out what the real battery life is going to be on your product. And it's not a black and white answer, as some would say it is. And so it's well worth delving into.
Thank you, Mark. Let's move on to the next point here. So as we say, there are today different ways to make devices interact with each other. The most common one is the one shown on the bottom left, where devices interact in the cloud or through cloud services like IFTTT. This is mostly recipes that app developers make to make things work together. This has for main advantage that it can be done easily, but the problem is this can, when the product manufacturer's APIs change, then the full app in the cloud doesn't work anymore. So it's a very unstable kind of ways to make devices interact with each other. Another possible way will be through the gateway. So at the top left corner, where actually a gateway is at the center of the house to make devices talk to each other. The main problem is a gateway provider won't have access to all the devices in the house today. And when the future customers will buy devices from a number of manufacturers, things might not work perfectly. On the top right-hand side, the one that we found the most interesting today, it's what Apple and AllSeen are doing. It's really to extract the primary function of the product. For example, 10 thermostats will all do the same function, such as raising temperature up or down, switching the boiler on and off, and therefore simplify the communication between any kind of thermostat and any kind of connected home device. So obviously the main disadvantage is you lose some specific functions from this. For example, learning capabilities from Nest or others will be lost through this, but you can still make devices talk to each other on a primary function level. And finally, the last thing that we will see probably in the future is the direct device-to-device interoperability, but this might take time, and we are not there yet today.
So, Mark, any comments on the direct device-to-device possibility? Would that take, do you think, in your view, a few years, several years?
I think that at the moment the signs are that this is a long journey. The manufacturers are not really coalescing around anything at the moment, so there's a lot of people trying to find their direction, and there's no real solid offers on the table to show what that would be. And really you're talking about common language for devices and common transport mechanism for devices, and that really hasn't been an activity that's been defined yet. So I guess that you're looking at a 5-year horizon before we start seeing that in the market and start seeing people starting to coalesce around whatever that standard becomes. But at the moment, it's very much an API minefield with lots of people with APIs in the cloud and API-based products with no real solid language definition, which is really what the IoT is crying out for. So I think 5 years would be a conservative sort of view, but it could be 2 years away if somebody really comes out from left field with something interesting.
Thanks very much, Mark. So for the time being, we'll have to cope with the options either in the cloud through the gateway or, as Arthur explained, by extracting the product primary functions.
So let's move on to the next point here. So obviously today there is the big battle from Connectome providers to be the gateway provider actually. So what Nest is trying to do is to be at the center of the house and then making devices interact with each other, but by being at the center. And there is a battle today between these gateways, which are between 100 and 300 euros, and which can initially convert a radio protocol into the internet, but it might in the future get more storage, get more capabilities to run devices together. And on the other hand, you have the electronic giants like Samsung, Panasonic, LG, and others who are trying to use the TV or other in-home devices to actually control the connected home even when there is no internet in the house, because that will be crucial when customers will have tens of devices working together. You will need at some point to make these devices work together without the help of the internet. So a TV could be doing this, the Apple TV, LG TV, the Xbox could be doing this in the future, we don't know. But there is a battle between being this kind of device, in which will either be some kind of smart TV or smart gaming console versus the Connectome gateway. And obviously, these devices will be able to download apps, update, process the apps, and keep all the interoperability. So it's a very crucial device to be in today. So the main part of this webinar we will be talking about the big platform providers. So this is a table summarizing what some of the main ones are doing, like Apple, Google, Deutsche Telekom, Samsung, and AllSeen. And we looked at in the report lots of criteria such as open or closed. Obviously, someone like Apple is much more closed than the AllSeen Alliance, which is a fully open platform. What differentiates platform is the fact that they have a gateway or not, the type of interoperability they are trying to achieve, the radios or the protocols they are using, and at the end the fixed in-home device, so what we call the aggregator that will be in place in the house. So we won't spend too much time on this table, but if you want to have a look afterwards when you have the slides, feel free to ask us questions later, and we will be happy to answer them.
We've got one question just come in, actually, Arthur. Why have we not shown any utilities or energy companies on this particular table?
That's a good question. Actually, we have one telco and other big alliances, but in the report we have looked at a utility, British Gas, and actually what utilities are more being a local platform provider as opposed to being a global one. So utilities are currently relatively successful at rolling out Connectome devices, such as smart thermostats, but they are really trying to build on a closed local platform to bring their own, to bring customer satisfaction and keep their customers. While these platforms shown here are more targeting the world and trying to be big. But we think that utilities might have to work with these platforms shown on the slide in the future as opposed to compete against them.
There are probably three utilities that stand out in particular: British Gas in the UK, Eneco in the Netherlands, and RWE in Germany, that are making concerted efforts to develop platforms for their own markets. We could have had 50 companies on this list, so we chose a small number to talk about today just to contrast their different approaches. Sue, I don't know if you'd like to just say a few words about British Gas's strategy around a platform based on your experience there.
Yes, I think that British Gas and, for that matter, Eneco as another leading utility that are doing quite well at Smart Home, decided that a key ingredient in success was going to be partnering the platform. So both AlertMe and Eneco have a stake in their platform. Obviously now AlertMe has actually been acquired by British Gas, but that wasn't the case at the beginning. And both had teams that worked very closely. British Gas was slightly different in gradually deciding to remove some of the layers of capability within AlertMe and actually stuck them into to British Gas. And it wanted to leave AlertMe really with just the main functional elements of the platform and to take away some of the actual product design capabilities and move that into the British Gas bit of the organisation. But they still try to work very, very closely with AlertMe. So it's a very tight relationship. I think that was one of the interesting things about it.
Thanks very much, Sue. We've got another question come in about Nest being a gateway, and in what way is Nest a gateway?
Well, actually, the smart thermostats of Nest, the gateway is included in the smart thermostat. So the thread that is used to communicate with the boiler is actually being converted already in the Nest thermostat. So itself, it's a gateway that can convert protocols. It's not like other products where you can have a separate box, but actually it does exactly the same. So the Nest thermostat is partly a gateway and partly a thermostat.
And that's one of the approaches some companies are taking, is to try and almost smuggle the gateway in through the product. So if you buy a Nest thermostat, you don't actually know you're buying a gateway, but inside the thermostat is a fair bit of computational power and ability to convert radios to IP, to the internet.
And yeah, the main thing is customers see gateways as an unnecessary white box, and putting the gateway in the product already solve the problem. So that's an interesting play by Nest.
Okay, so we've got a few more questions, but let's move on and then pick up the questions a little later, just to check we have enough time to get through the slides. But we're always interested to discuss this topic, so please feel free to contact us after the webinar as well.
And we will get back to you anyway with your questions after the webinar. So let's move on to each individual platform we looked at in this webinar, starting with Apple HomeKit. So it's quite interesting because Apple historically has been a hardware provider and the customer experience hardware provider, while here it's mostly being at the center of the connected home without offering any products. So there are lots of partners, interesting ones, customer design led ones, but no Apple hardware yet. It's a very walled garden closed platform, so Apple will select its partners very carefully, and they will make them pay a lot for being part of the platform. Interestingly, there is no gateway yet, so its HomeKit is working Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and made for iPhone Wi-Fi. So only Apple devices will be able to control the HomeKit Connect Home platform. And it's quite interesting because by joining Apple HomeKit, you will have the benefits from the marketing through Apple. Customers already know Apple, and the customer experience is interesting. And also, by being a connected home platform provider, you will need lots of app developers to make apps to run devices together. And it's a sure thing that Apple has a lot of developers and is very attractive for young and dynamic developers.
So Apple will be launching in North America before Europe, but some of their partners are shown on the screen, and you can see they're already attracting some strong brands and interesting products to the HomeKit family.
So let's move on to the next slide. The Google Nest platform. So as opposed to Apple, Google has been rather a software or service provider. And now it's moving toward being a hardware provider. So if you go to the Google store, you will see lots of hardware, the watches, the connected devices. Now they are doing phones, tablets, etc. So they are really trying to be at the center of the house to do this. And it's a relatively closed platform as well. So not as closed as Apple HomeKit. Google allows third-party developers to make apps to make the Nest work with other devices. But again, Nest and Google are selecting their partners very carefully, and we believe that to make things work together, manufacturers will have to pay some kind of money to join it. And the main way to interact with the Nest thermostat is through the cloud. So Nest is sharing some of the product API or the cloud API, and you can use it to make, for example, your thermostat to turn on when you enter your house and you have your smart door lock opens. So that's quite interesting again, but there are problems with the cloud API that are unstable compared to the product APIs.
I've got one question here about what kind of devices can be connected to the Nest gateway. Well, Thread is the main protocol they're using. So at the moment, the number of devices that use Thread and can talk directly to the Nest gateway is very limited. I think it's an open question in the future as to how many third-party devices use Thread and can connect directly to the Nest gateway rather than connecting through the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. So for now, the main thing is the cloud, and we see in the future when Nest supposedly will be rolled out in lots of houses, then perhaps devices can be connected directly to the gateway. But so far, I think only Nest products like the smoke alarm or the drop cam camera can do this. So the next platform we looked at is actually a telecom platform, a Deutsche Telekom, which is quite interesting because they already have a strong customer base, and we see them as being one of the most aggressive platform from the telco side in Europe. It's purely B2B approach, so they are trying to attract lots of partners, which is what they are doing. They have attracted names like Bosch, Samsung, for example, Philips. And in the future, the gateway will be built into the internet router. So as we talked about before, the problem for customers is this extra white box that has no use. And actually, if customers already have an internet router from Deutsche Telekom, then they will already have the gateway capabilities, and that makes it quite interesting. The problem is this internet router is relatively cheap today, and can it have the functionalities that an aggregator will have in the future to run the app, run the devices, store some data? That's a big question. And also, Deutsche Telekom will might struggle to find as many app developers to run all the devices together, because it's not an Apple, it's not a Google, it's not a fancy kind of brand as the electronic and internet giants. But however, they might succeed to do this if they do the right partnerships. Deutsche Telekom is, for example, the biggest retailer of iPhone in Europe, so we believe they will be working with companies like Apple or Google in the future. So that might not be a problem at the end.
We've got another question on what do we see as the main driver behind smart homes, for example, telcos, utilities, or consumer electronics providers. And I think you're already seeing that a number of these different types of companies are engaging very strongly in this market. And for us, it makes it such a fascinating space because you have all of those companies in the question, telcos, utilities, consumer electronics companies, and even insurance companies as well, looking at this area, working out what position to take, and some of them already being quite aggressive. Sue, I don't know if you want to make any short comment on how you see the battleground or the enthusiasm of the different companies targeting this space.
Yes. So in terms of the telcos, they've got quite wide ambitions. I mean, some entering energy directly. So we've seen that with France Telecom in Poland and Hungarian Telecom, Magyar, which is a subsidiary of Deutsche Telekom in Hungary, and Comcast in the US. And then we see them also with smart energy propositions. So, for example, the smart thermostat was away in with Comcast and is part of AT&T's portfolio in America. The telco ambition to put the router, to put the gateway and the router is an interesting one and takes some cost out. But it does mean there's asymmetry in the market. So, if, for example, a utility wants to use this as a way of reaching the market in a cost-effective way, they are still left with, well, what do they do about the customers of the other telcos? So it allows a sort of partnership to the Deutsche Telekom base, but it still doesn't solve the problem, even in Germany, of having a ubiquitous solution to all the German consumers. So there, and then I guess there's an issue as the router becomes more intelligent and each telco starts to embed gateways in the routers. Then have you got to support a slightly different version of the gateway in each of the telcos in order to address the whole market? So there are still things to be ironed out, but the move towards taking cost out by putting the gateway in the router is a welcome one.
Thanks very much, Sue. And I think it's going to be a very interesting battle is maybe too strong, but positioning from telcos, utilities, consumer electronics companies, insurance companies. I think a number will need to work together, and it will be very interesting to see what how partnerships develop in the next years.
Can I add one thing?
So let's move on to the next platform now. And keeping an eye on time, we have 15 minutes left. So again, if we cannot go through your questions, we will get back to you after the webinar. And feel free again to ask us questions after the webinar. So talking about the Samsung and SmartThings platform. So it's a bit unclear what they are doing yet, because obviously Samsung has bought SmartThings recently, but Samsung has joined a lot of alliances and has announced they want to be an open IoT platform provider, while SmartThings is more of a gateway provider that links other devices to its sensors and gateway. So there is a long list of interoperable devices that goes with SmartThings, and there is a work with SmartThings kind of community where app developers will make devices work together. So again, it's unclear what Samsung will do in the future, how they will integrate SmartThings into this. But Samsung is already doing connected smart appliances, for example, and they are investing a lot of money in being a full IoT provider. So We will keep an eye on this and see how it goes, but we definitely see Samsung as a strong player in this market. And the last platform we'll talk about in the webinar is the AllSeen Alliance. So AllSeen has been created by the Nexus people, the Linux people, sorry, who are more like an open, free organization. So it's really for non-profits. It's just for being a full IoT platform. So they are running on the AllJoin software, which can be downloaded on any kind of device once you join the alliance. And no gateway is required. So any device can be the center of this and run the other device. So as we said before, this can extract the primary function of all the products to make things work easier and smoother. Obviously, without having the full functionalities of all the products, but with having at least some kind of interoperability with products. Mark, would you like to say a word on how what is the mechanism behind such function?
Okay, Mark, can we just check if you're still there on the line? Okay, well, we're not sure what's happened to Mark, but if we move on to the next slide.
So this is a table that summarizes the position of some of the platform providers, including other ones like Amazon, Binico, RWE that we didn't look at. And one of the things to analyze is really the closed versus open and the local versus global platforms. So obviously the likes of Apple, Google and Amazon will be very international. They will try to reach out the whole market. But companies like the utilities and some of the telcos will be more on the national side and rather close for now. So Deutsche Telekom, for example, we put in the middle because they are trying to reach several countries and they are trying to open up, but it's still a very relatively closed platform. And on the right-hand side, you have platforms like the AllSeen that we talked about, Open Interconnect, which is also interesting, the Mosaic one, linking Bosch and a few others. But again, this might move relatively quickly in the future, and that's something we will follow very carefully.
Okay, now I think we can maybe unmute Mark and bring him in. No, we can't yet, so we'll come back to the question about the primary product function and the AllSeen Alliance.
Mark, are you here now?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I lost audio for a while.
So, Mark, would you like to say a few words about the AllSeen Alliance and how they actually go about extracting the primary product functions? So, for example, temperature or lighting to enable devices to communicate with each other.
Yeah, so I'll try. It's a rather sort of technical area, but AllSeen was started by Qualcomm as AllJoin, and they're a very large semiconductor manufacturer in the US, mostly focused at smartphone and radio technology. And they gave the development that they started up to the Linux Foundation a couple of years ago, and it's now started to sort of open up a lot more. A lot of manufacturers have joined the platform. And the platform is mostly a sort of API level, peer-to-peer style platform, so it allows you to abstract some of the functions that are obvious about devices like thermostats and so on, and through using a common API, it allows those to be built into an interoperability framework. Most people using it today are connecting to devices over the internet or through IP connections, usually by Wi-Fi. But the platform itself allows you to extend the connectivity into other choices for radio, like Zigbee, Z-Wave, and so on. We haven't seen a lot of that being done yet, but some of the members of the Alliance seem to be taking in that direction, so we can look forward to seeing a broader range of radio choices. The interesting thing about it from a manufacturer's point of view is it's perhaps the only truly open platform in the market that's got any traction at all. And that means it's interesting because if you obviously go down the Apple route, you're locked into Apple devices only, and that's still only a small fraction of the market, something like 20 to 30%, depending on if you're looking at tablets or phones. And if you go down the Google avenue, you've got the same problem again. So this one offers the potential to bridge across all of the different phone and device platforms. So it's one that's getting quite a lot of attention from different manufacturers, not least the big consumer goods players, people like Panasonic and the Japanese electronics manufacturers seem to be favouring this platform because it's pretty neutral to their interests. And technically, it does have a reasonably good solution. It's still not a common language for the Internet of Things, which is the ultimate.
Mark, I'm afraid the quality of the audio is very poor, so we'll maybe leave it there, but we'll send around with the presentation slides, we'll send around some comments on AllSeen, so make sure everyone can get Mark's contribution. We've got a couple of questions around smart meters and interface with the electricity system for example, for demand response. So in the UK, there's smart meters are being rolled out in a way which will allow the smart meter to talk with a what's called consumer access device. So the smart meter can interface directly with appliances in the home, for example. And there's lots of, I think, interest about how the smart meter could be used with demand response to influence the timing of demand. It is a UK-specific issue. We're not aware of any other European countries that have a similar mechanism to allow the smart meter to talk directly to appliances. And the smart meters in the UK do that using the Zigbee protocol. We are aware of some initiatives in Sweden where they have hourly pricing already available. So the smart meter in Sweden can read hourly prices. And there are some heat pump manufacturers that have developed heat pumps that will read the day-ahead power prices from the electricity exchange. So the heat pump is connected to the internet. They can then reach out and look at the hourly day-ahead prices and shape the operation of the heat pump according to both the comfort needs of the home and the economic needs of the home. So the heat pump runs when the power is cheap. And the smart meter would then measure the electricity consumption every hour. And we've seen reductions, energy bill reductions of 20 to 30% in some cases for the running of the heat pump when it picks up the hourly day-ahead prices. So that's an example where the smart meter merely reads the consumption every hour rather than has any control. And I think it's going to be one of the interesting things in the UK, the degree to which the data or the control will flow through the smart meter, or the degree to which it will go through the internet.
Great, so we can move on slide now. So we approach the end of the webinar. So to summarize the questions we looked at in the report itself. So again, what are the electronic and giant Connectome providers doing in this space? Well, they are doing a lot, and it's very dynamic, and we are following this very carefully and reporting on this regularly because this will shape the Connectome market. And their strategies mainly as closed platform, as open platforms, as IoT providers will be different from one another, and this will influence everything. The different ways to make devices interact with each other, well, this will, as Mark explained, this will evolve in the short term, in the next few years. Again, today the cloud-based interaction is the most used one, but in the future it might be through the gateway, through the aggregator, or true interoperability could happen. And the key criteria to consider when selecting the platforms, it ranges from the radio protocols, the type of strategies that platforms are using, the app developers community that they can generate, and obviously the market power and the marketing advantages that these companies bring to your business.
So we've been working with a number of companies to help them look at their platform choices, and some of the questions we talk with our clients about are, what do they actually want to be offering their customers? what are the use cases for their products or the use cases for the services they want to offer? How open do they need to be? What brand benefit do they want to get from a platform provider? And how do they want to interact with other devices in the home? So there's no one answer, and a lot of the trick here, I think, is to future-proof yourself, to make the decisions you need to make today, but not to lock yourself too far down one particular route when there's still a lot of different ways that this market might develop.
Okay, so let's spend the last 4 or 5 minutes talking about what we have done in the Connectome. So the infrastructure is our latest report, but we have been doing a lot in the last 18 months. So this is shown on the screen is the web portal that we use for our subscribers. So on the top hand of the slide, you can see the Connectome news updates, where every few weeks we send an update on all the partnerships, alliances, or new functionalities of product that happen in the market, and with our analysis from it. What appeared on the left-hand side is a list of all the products, so our library of products that we have reviewed already. So on if you click on each logo, you will have a slide showing all the functionalities of the product, where it is, the routes to market, and all the necessary information you will need. We run, after each report, a private webinar with only subscribers. So we have done this webinar with our clients already, with more devs, obviously. And so you have access to all the webinars recorded in the past. So the reports we have been doing in the last 12 months, we have looked at the state of the European market and gave our views on how the market will develop, country by country, product by product. We have looked at, as I said, the products. So we have a library of about 50 products that we will update and improve. We looked at the business models for the Connectome. So main question being how to generate value for subscribers, how to generate value for your business. So is it by selling products, or by bundling, or by partnering with other people? And finally, the next question we will look at is the customer research. So we are currently running primary customer research, doing surveys in 3 or 4 different countries in Europe, and to really understand what the customer wants and what you can actually offer him, what kind of value proposition you can offer him.
So we haven't talked about the customer too much today, but of course this is a consumer market, and the success or otherwise of the connected home will depend on developing compelling propositions for customers. So we're quite excited to be learning about the different products and services that customers value, which ones they value ahead of others, their willingness to spend money on these products and services. So we'd be very interested to talk with anyone that's interested to exchange or share views and perspectives on this area in the next month or so, as we carry out and complete this the primary market research we're doing with customers. So please do keep in touch with us generally. As I said earlier on, we're always delighted to talk with people about this topic and to hear your questions, to exchange views. It's a fascinating area. Arthur and Ali are spending all of their time in this topic, and Sue and Mark spend a lot of their time in this area as well. We're, I think, at our 45-minute limit now, so we will make copies of the presentation and the webinar available to you, so you can share them with your colleagues. We'll follow up on the bit from Mark about the AllSeen Alliance, where the audio dropped a bit. We'll answer questions that we didn't manage to answer during the call today, and thanks for your questions. Most of all, thank you to you all for your attention, for joining the webinar. We hope you found it interesting. We hope you found it valuable. Any feedback that you want to give us on today, we'd greatly appreciate. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Mark, for your contributions. And yeah, you can follow us, follow our blogs, follow the news on our website on the connected home topic, and we'll keep you in touch with our research. hope to speak to you individually or on one of our future webinars. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.